So welcome all, and today we are going to start this subsection. The title is A Bridge or a Wall. Whether you are trying to create a new product like the Chick-fil-A milkshake or just wanting to change a system idea, process or tradition, challenging up requires a bridge of relationship that is strong enough to handle the weight of the challenge. Very important line to remember. Challenging up requires a bridge of relationship that is strong enough to handle the weight of the challenge. Shane had the relational capital to make this withdrawal. Before you set out to challenge, you need to assess whether you have put in the work of relationship and if that relationship can bear the weight of the challenge you want to bring. Very, very important. And this assessment has to be done before we challenge. Otherwise, the blindly challenging might actually backfire. So before we set out to challenge, we need to check, we need to assess whether we have put enough work of relationship, enough work in building that relationship, and that will help us to understand whether we should go ahead or we should take another approach. Here is how it works. You see something that is folding. What is the meaning of folding? Why in the world do we do that? It makes no sense to you, and you have often wondered why it has not been changed or challenged. You talk it over with some of your peers. You formulate a game plan. You nail down an approach to bring it up. So here is how it works. You see something that is baffling. Why in the world do we do that? It makes no sense to you, and you have often wondered why it has not been changed or challenged. You talk it over with some of your peers. You formulate a game plan. You nail down an approach to bring it up. From your perspective, the change makes total sense, and you assume your boss will see it that way as well. We assume that the other person also will see in the same way, but it might not be true always. The words you use when you share your idea are bricks that will either build a bridge of relationship for your idea or a wall of distrust. Since words matter, here are a few common sentences and phrases you should probably avoid. Here are a few common sentences and phrases that you should probably avoid. What are they? This will likely require some self-control, but think about them like bricks. In what you say, are you building the bridge or are you putting up a wall? The first one is constantly comparing your team, organization, or church to another team, organization, or church. So we need to be cautious here. Well, the church splits their middle school and high school programs. It just seems like that organization is always doing something more creative with their graphics than we are. Have you seen their website? It's way easier to navigate than ours. Chances are there is a church or organization doing something better than what you are doing, and that might even be the source of your desire to change and grow and improve. There is nothing wrong with that. In fact, you should keep your eyes open to what's happening in culture and what's working in other organizations to foster learning and growth. To foster learning and growth. But constantly comparing your church to another church is like comparing your spouse to a former relationship. It never goes well. So comparison never goes well. We know it very well. He says that in fact you should keep trying, keep your eyes open to what's happening in culture and what's working in other organizations to foster learning and growth. That is okay. We should keep our eyes open, but comparing directly is not going to work. Second point is empathetically declaring that what you are doing now is not working. Our small groups just do not work. It's basically social hour for everyone involved. Kids do not learn anything in our environments. Is there a better way to do what you are currently doing? Possibly. Is the idea you have for change a better way to approach the problem? Maybe so. However, definitive statements shut down conversation. We should not actually judge and give the conclusive kind of statement, because that shuts down the conversation. They reveal a lack of empathetic thinking, which will ultimately build a wall and not a bridge. When someone is reckless with definitive statements, it reveals a lack of discriminant and creates distance in relationship. The truth is that what you are currently doing, though probably flawed, is still working at some level. There are better ways to build your case than to speak with absolute certainty about what is currently happening. It immediately invalidates the work others are doing and questions your credibility. So this will be completely and always avoidable. So now you want to take over from here?
Gigi, Vikashji, can you make the this font little bit bigger?
Yeah.
Yeah, please. Yes, it's fine now.
Okay.
Blaming the current situation on anyone, especially your boss. This new registration system for check-in was not thought through. It is as if no one was paying attention to it. No one on our team feels like they can speak up. Maybe you should not be a part of the meeting. Any new idea is naturally going to challenge the status quo. When you raise that new idea, you will be implicitly blaming the status quo and all of its problems on those currently in charge. Adding to that, with additional statements of blame, will only damage the relationship and show them you are not a team player and cannot be trusted. You may not directly blame someone for why something is not working, but you still want to avoid statements that imply blame or would lead your boss to question whether you have a particular individual in mind. You want to challenge with enough emotional intelligence to avoid blaming someone for what is currently being done. Obstinately offering an ultimatum for your future. I just don't know if I will be able to make it here if you don't allow us to make this change. If I don't get the budget for that, I am just not sure I can pull off the event. Statements like these might be true. You may not be able to survive in a culture that does not allow for change. You might not be able to survive in an organization that is not willing to pay for the work or ministry it is expecting from you. You may not be able to keep your team motivated when the day is constantly squeezing every ounce of potential out of every opportunity. But ultimatums will rarely help you. An ultimatum eventually undermines your own leadership. Other leaders have led under far more stressful situations. Other leaders have done more with less. Other leaders have made work what you are saying will not work. Instead of using an ultimatum to effect change, convince your boss that you are on the same team, that you are behind him or her. Make sure your boss is aware of your perspective and explore together what the implications are if the decisions is or is not made. Include them in the process of evaluating rather than presenting specific choices or actions as foregone conclusions if immediate action is not taken. Worth the risk. I know you have a burden for change. You should. And we all know that if you do not raise the challenge, there will be no change. Challenging your leader or your boss is a risk. But without the risk, there are no rewards. Remember, how well you challenge will determine how much you change. I grew up with this quote on the wall in my childhood bedroom. I read it 1,000 times, but it only became personal when I decided to be courageous enough to make a change in my own life. Paul William Bear Bryant said, if you believe in yourself and have dedication and pride and never quit, you will be a winner. The price of victory is high, but so are the rewards. Victory is not just the change that takes place because you challenge up and lead when you are not the one in charge. The victory is also the growth that takes place when you enter this process of learning as a leader. God has grown me more through the process of challenging my bosses than just about anything else at work. I have prayed more, found more humility, developed more courage, and allowed God to build my confidence in Him because of these moments of challenge. And hopefully, you are still with me because this is such an important aspect of leading when you are not in charge. We are going to take one more chapter to look at what it means to challenge up. In the next chapter, I will unpack the four most essential ingredients to the art of doing this well.
That will be very interesting.
Yeah.
Four most essential ingredients we are going to reveal, author is going to reveal, which is on the art of doing better challenging, how to challenge better empathetically. That we'll see tomorrow, and that is part of chapter 9, breaking down challenging us. Nice.
Yeah.
So you want to share anything?
Yes, but my takeaway from today's reading was that first of all, uh, for learning and growth, we have to keep our eyes open. Though we have not to constantly saying or comparing, but our eyes should be opened enough so that there is a scope of growth. And secondly, it was our perspective, our perspective to or we may say the communication skills, how we take our boss into confidence and how we explain the things for the change.
Very right. Almost everything you have covered. So we need to empathetic in all the case. That is what also a part that author has covered today.
Ji.
And constantly comparing won't work at all. This metaphor that he has given, that is also very
Yeah, with the spouse.
with the spouse, with your girlfriend, ex. It's like comparing your spouse to a former relationship.
Hmm.
And unknowingly or unnoticingly, we also compare in our family at times. So this is a reminder that why we should not do. What we should not do, we know, but why we should not do, if we know it better, then it gets remembered easily and at the right time. And we can also convince others not to do the same.
Yeah, very true.
Here are a few common statements and phrases you should probably avoid these things. One is constantly comparing. You should avoid. And then the second one is empathetically declaring that what you are doing now is not working. What you are doing now is not working. That also should be, you should not be kind of doing
It should be
because,
avoided, yes.
because we are generalizing. What is working, we are just not focusing, and what is not working, we are generalizing to overpower all the positive things and saying that nothing is working. That is bad. And then third is blaming the current situation on anyone, especially. So blaming anyway will not work. Blaming to your boss is even more bad. That will create the havoc, basically. Even the current situation also, we should not blame to the situation or the boss. No one should be blamed. We should actually, but you still want to avoid statements that imply blame or would lead your boss to question whether you have a particular individual in mind. You want to challenge with enough emotional intelligence to avoid blaming someone for what's currently being done.
A leader in charge should be emotionally intelligent enough.
Yes. Obstinately offering an ultimatum for your future. Offering an ultimatum is also not good, and this is also very similar to this particular one, declaring what's not working, generalizing. But here it is even more ultimatum, means even more what do you say, straightforward, that we are declaring that it is not working at all. By ultimatums, but ultimatums will rarely help you. An ultimatum eventually undermines your own leadership. Other leaders have led under far more stressful situations. Other leaders have done more with less. Other leaders have made work what you are saying will not work. Instead of using an ultimatum to effect change, convince your boss that you are on the same team, that you are behind him or her. This is also comparing. If you are comparing and saying that others are better, that is also not going to work. So instead of using an ultimatum to effect the changes, convince your boss that you are on the same team, and then together we can change. Then what's the risk is part that you have already explained. And tomorrow we will start from chapter 9. I think this is the last chapter. 60,
Okay.
30 pages, around 33 pages are there, and another 33 pages. Okay, thank you, Sumanji, for joining.
Thank you, Vikashji. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.